And we're live. Look, ladies and gentlemen, we are here on the weekly episode of the podcast that doesn't have a name. It's the podcast where I bring smart people on and we talk about things that I find interesting. I have Walker Guffey here, the CEO and founder of Hello Moon, which is the number one RPC provider on Solana, if I'm not mistaken, right?
We're up there. We're up there.
Okay, they're up there. We're not going to talk in depth about Solana today, although actually I do want to talk about Solana a bit. We're going to talk about Bitcoin, crypto in general, including Solana and MicroStrategy. Before we get started, I just want to mention, like, Hello Moon is our longest standing partner here at the organization. We love working with Hello Moon. Walker, I am curious, how are things go before we go just balls deep on MicroStrategy like we're going to? How's it going at Hello Moon? Like, what's going on over there?
Everything's awesome. We are growing like crazy, like we have been for, basically since we founded the company. We're seeing shifts in the market. So meme coins are not as, we're not seeing as many meme coins as we were, I don't know, 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago. But no, it's great. We've started expanding chains. So we've been Solana only for a very long time. We've recently expanded to, Say and Movement, and we're working closely with a ton of other blockchain foundations as well. So I think more on that soon. But yeah, we've just been running the business basically.
Real quick, funny anecdote that you don't know that I'm telling you now for the first time. A friend of mine, like a good IRL friend, not in crypto. In fact, I'd actually say he's like a crypto skeptic. He's an engineer. He like smart guy. Used to work at a Hyperloop, so like good engineer. A recruiter reached out to him and told him about this company, Hello Moon, that was
right.
Like years.
Oh man.
And he hit me up. He goes, yo, you heard of this company, Hello Moon? Because, he knows I'm in crypto. I was like, do I know Hello Moon? Come on now. And he goes, I obviously put in a strong recommendation for you. I don't know if he followed through with it because he's weird. But he said the recruiter told him, like, yeah, these guys can pay.
It's true. We can pay. Actually, funny story on that front. When we first started out, we were looking for a product manager, and I guess I'll cut to the chase, but we'd been working closely with Coinbase. And we got onto a call with them, and they were like, hey, so we all got emailed about joining the team. So yeah, that happens.
The recruiters are out there going hard. I did that job for like 6 years, Walker, so I know about the recruiting thing. Anyway, look, we'll start to get into it. So one of the reasons, obviously, you're our pal, and you are a significant crypto entrepreneur, CEO of a relevant crypto company here, doing well in the industry. That alone would make it relevant to have you on the show. But the icing on the cake, and the reason why I wanted to have you on the show, is because of your background from before crypto. And so, can you try to simply explain to the audience what your professional background was before crypto?
Yeah, I mean, it was a long time. I spent, 13 years almost in pretty heavy finance. So I started out doing banking. I was at Wells Fargo Securities. The team that I was on did a lot of work with options and derivatives and things like that. Not quite on the converts team, but we worked closely there. And then after that, I did almost a decade of software private equity at a firm called Hermes, which was an amazing experience. And then I started the company.
That's a big name firm, is it not?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big shop. They'd raise, a little, $1.3, $1.4 billion every 2-3 years. So definitely definitely wrote some big checks back in the day.
Yeah. And where'd you go for undergrad?
I went to Duke.
So Duke undergrad in finance.
Yep.
Did you graduate with honors?
No.
Sorry.
I almost graduated with a finance certificate, but I had to take an 8:30 a.m. class this last semester of my senior year, and so I didn't even do that. I just Bachelor of Science in economics.
Oh, economics. So that's not a finance degree. That's harder than finance.
Yeah. I mean, it's like 4 years of learning why it's an efficient market and it's not possible to make money, which was, best imaginable use of time. I'd have to say.
That's hilarious. Yeah, no, I just knew because I was a math major for a period of time in undergrad. And then after you get from the applied mathematics, like the calculus, physics, things like that, after you get to that, you go to fully conceptual math,
yep.
which like you got to be autistic, dude. Like you really do to do that. Like there's a course called Rings and Fields that I guess like the most genius people would get seasoned. I was like, dude, I don't really know if this BS in math makes sense. But anyway, the reason I bring it up is because, getting a BS in math is really hard. getting a BS in economics is also supposed to be hard. And I had friends that did finance undergrad, and they said that economics, like getting a BS in economics, was harder than a BA, I believe, in finance, a BA in finance.
Yeah, no, it was quite a surprise. I thought I was going to be reading like essays and things like that, and instead it was basically, you know, applied calculus. So what can you do?
Yeah, it's no joke. So anyway, all right, we're talking about that stuff. I want to give people a background of what you did. You are knowledgeable on convertible debt, right?
Sure.
Which is pretty synonymous with MicroStrategy, because MicroStrategy, which people that watch this show know, obviously publicly traded company, the Bitcoin treasury company at this point. It's a software company that makes BI software, now trying to integrate AI in a deep way on that side. But then it's a Bitcoin treasury company. Michael Saylor, you know, it was announced today that they have about 507,000 Bitcoin. You know, unbelievable, right? And for a long time, convertible debt was the kind of big buzzword with MicroStrategy, because there were only there were technically three ways that MicroStrategy would raise capital to buy Bitcoin. Now, I talk about this on the show all the time. Walker, if I asked you, and it's not a quiz, but I like to have the guests explain it instead of me explaining it. Until recently, the first, call it 4 years of MicroStrategy having a Bitcoin strategy, they bought Bitcoin with the cash on their balance sheet. That was the first thing they did. They had X amount of billion. I don't remember how much it was initially, and they bought Bitcoin with it. What are the other two ways that MicroStrategy raised capital to buy Bitcoin in their first 4 years?
Well, I mean, I don't know, but if I had to guess, I would say you can buy with cash you have on hand. You can issue equity, you can issue debt, or you can issue converts, which are basically a combination of debt and equity.
Yep. So they issued equity. So that's their ATM, their at the market strategy, where they just issued common stock, MicroStrategy common stock shares, right? And then they issued the converts, like you're talking about, which is the convertible debt. This is the thing that everybody has an opinion on. And it seems like a lot of people do understand, but a lot of people seem to think that this is like he's going to get margin call, you know, he's going to get liquidated on these bonds in the convertible market. You've texted me with opinions on these. Here's the news. This is the strategy.com website after the rebrand, right? This is their actual website with their converts. Here is the live up-to-date information. Everything is on this website. Everything's transparent. You asked me what the multiple they're trading at is. I'm looking at it on my side. It's on the front page. If you go to MSTR, Ray, 2.18 right there. Right? Like it's just MNAV on the right. It's always just right there, ready to rock and roll. All the information is totally transparent on the site. But let's talk about these converts.
Let's do it.
So what would make you concerned about the structure of, and keep in mind, right now, this is becoming a smaller, percentage of MicroStrategy strategy to raise capital because of the implementation of Strike, STRK, the new security that they've issued that they've launched, that they've offered in the preferred market, and then Strife, another one which has just come out, which is why I was excited to talk to you today. I want to talk to you about those two things too, because this is some pretty, to me, pretty fascinating stuff when it comes to corporate finance. But what about this, about the debt would you be concerned about?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I just want to make sure that I'm looking at this correctly. And for the audience, I was telling Pio in advance, like, I have general thoughts, but nothing crazy specific. But I think just generally speaking, and by the way, full disclosure, we've met the MicroStrategies team. We've met a lot of people on their board. I really admire what they're doing. And I think they've already made a lot of money. I'm sure they'll make a lot of money kind of in the future. But I guess like at a high level, if you think about it, if you are a buyer of convertible debt, right, you want something that is, basically asset backed, right? So in a downside scenario, you're able to recover your principal, and then you want something that has as much, call it, as much volatility as possible, so that you have, basically you have these warrants that are embedded into the security. And so if there's an opportunity for the price of that stock to double or triple or whatever it might be, then you could very likely end up making more money on the equity than you would on the debt while having your downside fully covered. TBD, the exact applicability to MicroStrategies, but generally speaking, I think that's if you're a buyer of convertible debt, that's what you're looking for.
Yep. And so and I like to break this down ultra simply. You're an industry guy, so it's very easy for you to talk about that. But a lot of our listeners are not industry people. All of them are not industry people, right? And so essentially, when you're talking about that, because it's a bond and there's downside risk protection, right? Because the buyer of these bonds, they're much more conservative than someone that's buying MicroStrategy common stock, right?
Right, exactly.
Right. Almost 100%, if not 100%, institutional investors that are just operating in this market. These are the assets that they're able to buy because of regulations.
It'd be very difficult to buy that as anything other than an institution.
There you go. And so can you just really quickly explain the conversion component of this, right? Just in the most simple way possible, how these things can convert.
Yeah, I mean, so it's going to depend on the issuance. I would guess that it probably varies pretty widely across the different series that MicroStrategies has issued. But basically, you can convert the debt into equity at certain strike prices. And so, if the equity is above that strike price, then you're definitely going to want to convert. And you also can recover the full principal of the debt as well in a downside scenario. And so in the event that you can't convert, then you won't, and then you get paid back the principal.
Yep. So it's an IOU of sorts, just like every bond is, right? And the downside risk is that you receive the principal, you receive the principal and you didn't make any money on the deal, right? So you lost like the time that you were invested in it. You didn't lose money, but you didn't make money. And so you lost value because of inflation. Is that fair to say?
No, exactly. And basically for MicroStrategies, you have a much lower interest rate than you would with traditional debt. But you just have the equity upside, equity participation, basically.
Right. And so that equity upside, the way I think about it is, well, MicroStrategy has been the best performing equity, the best performing stock since it's implemented its Bitcoin strategy. Better performer than Bitcoin as a commodity and better performer than NVIDIA, which for a while they were close, but now MicroStrategy is just kicking NVIDIA's ass. It's like a quote from Michael Saylor, it's not even funny anymore, is right. What Michael Saylor literally said, right? And so if you're operating in this, convertible bond market, if you're an institutional investor in that market, and obviously, look, I don't have a Bloomberg terminal. I've never worked as an institutional investor or trader or anything of the sort. But knowing what I know about bonds, for example, my mom inherited some bonds. I'm looking at the charts, because I was managing her assets after that. They were just down over a 20-year period. And I was like, why would we possibly hold this thing that's literally down over 20 years when every other asset class in the world is up? Is it safe to say that the other assets that these institutional investors have access to in that market are not exactly like fire assets compared to Bitcoin, MicroStrategy? Like, I'd imagine that the idea that they can get exposure to the best performing stock in the entire stock market, MicroStrategy, might be interesting to them.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting. I mean, basically, you have Bitcoin upside. Yep. The upside is going to be dampened a little bit on one hand, and then on the other hand, you also have sort of downside protection. And so it's very ideal if you're in that market. I mean, Tesla was a large issuer of converts back in the day. I probably still are. And so I mean, high volatility companies are the higher the volatility, the more, and that's downside and upside, the more attractive the convert's going to be.
Yep. And so we just, ladies and gentlemen, gave an explanation of the convertible debt, convertible bond vertical of MicroStrategy's corporate finance strategy. And so before we move on to it, because I want to move on to Strike and Strife, which are their two preferred offerings, which are, I can't wait to hear what Walker says about them. When it comes to this, this convertible debt vertical, at this point, what concerns would you have about this long term? Do you think he'll overdo it and somehow, the debt will be called in some way? Like what could go wrong here to you?
Yeah, I mean, debt cuts in both directions, right? And so I think basically the concern would be that there would be too much downward volatility on the Bitcoin side, and you'd basically hit, like an asymptote. where maybe over the next 10 years, Bitcoin will do very well. But maybe there's enough volatility or enough leverage that MicroStrategy's equity holders are not able to fully participate in that upside as a result of, a black swan event, a deep bear market, something like that.
Okay, fair. The second way, the ATM offering is much easier for anybody to understand, I think, because it's just a dilution play where MicroStrategy's common stock, which just means the stock that a retail investor can pop open like Robinhood or Fidelity and just go and click on that MSTR button and buy the common stock. He issues new shares of it. As a result, he's able to raise capital. It dilutes the common stock. However, the term that you'll hear from the MicroStrategy crowd is accretive dilution. In other words, that it's accretive because he's going to buy Bitcoin with it. Bitcoin's going to just blow, rip the roof off. And as a result, it's still, the stock's going to go up even though it's being diluted, right? Do you have any thoughts on that with the common stock, Walker?
Yeah, well, I mean, so I think at the beginning of the show, I think you said that the current premium was it 2.2 times?
2.18 right now, which is not the low, but not the high.
Yeah. So I think if like basically, if your business is holding Bitcoin, right, and you are valued at 2.2 times Bitcoin, then every $1 of equity that you issue is worth $2.2 of book value, right? And so if you're valued at a multiple of book value, then you want to issue as much equity as you can. It's almost like if you're a bank and you are trading at, like 20 times book value, but you're valued at that book value, then if you can it's massively accretive to do that. I guess the question would be, I guess kind of if you're an equity investor, the flip side of that is that there's a world where Bitcoin does very well. So let's say maybe Bitcoin doubles today, or doubles over the next 6 months, but maybe the MicroStrategy's premium starts to trade closer to par, and so Bitcoin could double, and MicroStrategy stock could actually end up declining a little bit as a result. And so it's a trade-off.
If you buy MicroStrategy instead of buying Bitcoin, you are taking on organizational and key man risk 1,000%, which you get none of with Bitcoin. With Bitcoin, you're just buying a commodity. You're buying the oil that's in the ground. All of a sudden, you're buying Standard Oil when you buy MicroStrategy, and you're investing in John Rockefeller, the guy, right? Instead of the actual oil in the ground, which is obviously a totally different bag. You're making the bet that it's always going to trade at a multiple. What you pointed out is it is possible that multiple goes away. Anything's possible. It could trade at a discount, right? It is actually possible. And that's one of the big risks that you run when you invest in MicroStrategy. If you're a MicroStrategy bull, you have a baseline assumption that multiple is going to stick around. And I think that it's going to go higher is what I think as time goes on.
Yeah. I mean, and I haven't done a comprehensive study on this. I think it'd be tough to do a comprehensive study, but for tracking stocks, or even just for, like holding companies that own baskets of, tradable securities, those typically actually would trade at a discount. So you could look at, Liberty Media, the Liberty family of tracking stocks and assets, et cetera. Those are backed by John Malone, who was the top performing CEO in the S&P 500 over like a 40, 50-year basis. But even then, those vehicles would trade at 0.8x NAV or something to that effect. I know Bill Ackman's got a hedge fund type vehicle, Pershing Square. He's different people say different things, but he's had a higher than the S&P return for a long time, and I think that still trades at a pretty decent discount. And there's a long history of these vehicles trading at, anywhere from 0.4 to 0.5x all the way up to, maybe like 0.8x, something like that. And so, it's rare to, from what I've seen, at least, it's rare to see something that's trading at, a high multiple of NAV.
So I totally understand why you brought that up, and you've texted that to me before. So I was prepared for this comment. So a holding company, by definition, holds, other securities. So interests in other companies, right? And this is a really big thing when it comes to Bitcoin and crypto in general, but especially Bitcoin, is MicroStrategy is holding the commodity of Bitcoin, right? And the idea is that with a commodity like that, and by the way, MicroStrategy would not be able to just go buy Apple stock because of the way their company is structured. They cannot do that, but because of securities laws, they cannot do that, right? Because of regulation. And so and he's not going to buy chocolate, right? He's not going to buy soybeans, right? You can buy commodities, but he's not going to, maybe he is, but
Right.
I don't, right? He's buying what I would argue is the best commodity ever, Bitcoin, right?
Sure.
The digital token of value on the internet, and we're in an internet age, right? And the idea is that they'll be able to do things with Bitcoin in the future. And people, for whatever reason, people hate bringing this up because they're like, they act like it's a pipe dream. And I'm like, these guys have 507,000 Bitcoins now. And I was with some friends in town, some friends of friends who were 28 years old, so younger than me. I'm 35, 28-year-olds. One went to Brown, one works at DoorDash, one works at a company that's about to be acquired for a huge cash acquisition, okay? The one that went to Brown is interested in crypto, wants to get into it, holds Bitcoin. The one that works at DoorDash listened very well when we talked about Bitcoin, made no comments, just listened. And I could see him listening, made no comments. The other one said Bitcoin was not proven yet. 28-year-old guy, not proven yet. 7 years younger than me. And I brought up, I said, what, $2 trillion market cap.
Yes.
$2 trillion market cap, and he goes, it's proven from an investment standpoint. Basically, he's doing you can't buy a cup of coffee with it. That's the argument. Like it's
you can't buy a cup of coffee with gold either, at least,
Right. But people want Bitcoin to be a medium of exchange right now. Sure. And they don't acknowledge that, like, it's going to take a little bit of time for the new internet money of humans to develop. It's going to take a little bit of time for us to develop that, just like the first iPod sucked compared to what we have now with the iPhone, right? But think about it like that, and then fast forward 15 years from now, I have to think that MicroStrategy as the Bitcoin treasury company, one guest that I had on here, Andrew from Arch Public, he said that he thinks that MicroStrategy will be like Citadel, only with Bitcoin. And so it's just 100x more powerful because it's Bitcoin, right? It's not bullshit fiat currency. It's fucking Bitcoin, man. Like, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I mean, Citadel, I think announced that they were entering the crypto market recently. But I mean, so remind me, what's the like the dollar value of the Bitcoin of the Bitcoin position for MicroStrategy?
So if Bitcoin's what, 86 grand right now? So we go 507,000 Bitcoin. Well, I mean, it's right here. I think we have it right here. Yeah. So he's got all this information right here. I was about to just do them, but
so what is that? It's like $45 billion.
No, yeah, exactly. 40.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I mean, like if this was if this was a bank or, like Citadel or something like that, and the idea is like they're going to take this NAV and they're going to do something with it, like a 10% return on equity or return on assets, whatever you want to call it, would be pretty good. 15% would be very good, I would say. I haven't looked at ROEs and ROAs for banks in like 4 years, so maybe it's changed, but that would be pretty good at least a few years ago. And so for context, that would mean that they'd have to be making $6 or $7 billion a year in basically carry on that position, which is, that's a lot of money to make. So, and even then, if they were doing that right now, they'd be trading at what, like, if my math is right, 23, 24, 25 times earnings. And so they're not earning it today. And if they were earning it today, that'd still be a pretty decent multiple on earnings. So, there's you have to believe that they're going to do it. And then you have to think about, well, what earnings multiple would you apply to that, to that stream of cash. I could see it, but it's not easy to do,
Sure. And I got two follow-ups on that. Number one, FASB accounting, the FASB accounting standard that's about to be implemented that I want to talk about in a second. And then also, what about the appreciation of the underlying, the appreciation of the Bitcoin itself while they're bringing in that carry?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you have that too, but if you hold that constant, right? Because if you're comparing it to just owning Bitcoin, right? So you'd hold that constant because you'll get that price fluctuation regardless. And so then the question is, well, maybe they can earn more with it than you can. So a dollar of Bitcoin with them is worth more than a dollar of Bitcoin with you. I think right now it's worth 2.2 times more. And so the question is, well, what are they doing with that Bitcoin that you couldn't do? And I think the answer would have to be that they're earning a very high yield on it.
Fair. And so are you aware of the FASB accounting change?
I'm not aware of the most recent one, but there's always interesting accounting changes.
So Ray, if you could just Google it or throw it on Twitter. Honestly, man, Twitter's got like a lot of times to find the bite-sized information. Just searching for it on Twitter might be better. But the way that I understand it is that this is an accounting change that was implemented in Q4 2024. It was adopted by MicroStrategy in Q4 2024. And so they're allowed to count their Bitcoin gains towards their like earnings.
Sure.
And Tesla did this for Q4 2024, if I'm not mistaken, but MicroStrategy is doing it starting in Q1 2025. So at the end of April, first week of May, we'll get the first earnings from MicroStrategy with FASB adopted.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue that wouldn't change anything related to the underlying business. It would just change how it was accounted for.
Yeah.
Unless they're going to tax them on those earnings, which I would guess they're not, but I feel like it's the job of the security analyst to kind of adjust that away anyway. I remember a little, I don't know. I mean, it was a long time ago. But they made it so that if you were selling healthcare insurance, like if you're a healthcare insurance broker, because people generally renewed at high rates, you could recognize like 10 years worth of revenue from each customer you closed if you discounted to today, basically the present value of those earnings. Anyway, it's accounting rules change all the time. And I think what matters is cash in, cash out. But optically it may be positive. I would say though that optically it would cut in both directions. And so, there's going to be tough, even if Bitcoin is up 100x in the next 10 years, I would imagine there will still be quarterly downswings.
Oh yeah, we just had a 30% drawdown a month ago. Right?
Maybe the last one ever. Maybe not. I don't know.
No, whatever did. MicroStrategy went from 40 to 220. I mean, good Lord, that is a pullback. So, all right, let's just talk about Strike and Strife, the two new preferred offerings for MicroStrategy, and then we'll move on to crypto because obviously, the MicroStrategy topic is a very niche, deep dive topic, and you're very knowledgeable on crypto broadly and running a crypto business. So I'd rather talk about that. But so Walker, I've been having people on this show, and I was asking every single guest after Strike launched. So Strike is the preferred stock for MicroStrategy, right? The new security. I was asking every guest, are there other pools of liquidity from TradFi that Saylor can essentially create a product to be able to extract liquidity from, which is what he did with Strike? And everyone said, I think so, but I don't know, including smart people. One guy that works in wealth management, Andrew from Arch Public, he's got an algorithmic trading firm that's launched on top of Gemini. I'm like, these people know things. And everyone's saying, I don't know. And then Saylor comes out with Strife last week, and nobody cares because no one understands what it is, but it's a new security. It's a perpetual preferred stock. They both have dividends. I'm listening to podcasts on these things. It's a lot of new information. It's a lot of, we're assuming this and we're thinking that. But essentially, he's tapping into the preferred market now, is what he's doing with Strike and Strife. I I mean, look, he's going to ATM these things. So he's going to dilute them the same way that he dilutes common stock. But people think that he's going to be able, it'll be like more beneficial to common stockholders that he's doing it in these markets. And these are much more conservative investors. It seems like a win-win-win. It seems like a win for MicroStrategy, a win for the people that buy these securities, and a win for the investors in MicroStrategy common stock. Have you paid attention to this at all? Have you
I've paid attention to it. It's very complicated. So I haven't fully wrapped my head around the terms, but I'm definitely familiar with it.
Ray, if you could go on Twitter and just type in STRK and STRF, and we can just read some, because like, look, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to this right now, I know you're probably used to listening to podcasts where the hosts like just know everything about a subject matter. This is Saylor doing brand new shit, like brand new in the sense that no one's ever had a guy that was a CEO of a company step down from CEO, let the CFO run the company so that he can worry about the software side and worry about like managing employees and stuff. So Saylor can just sit around all day and think about different ways to generate capital from TradFi, like basically turning his securities into a product that he's selling to the traditional finance investors and generate, capital to buy Bitcoin with it. We've never seen something like this, but here we go. This is a beautiful, look at this thing. I haven't seen this table right here. So we got MicroStrategy, the common stock. Strike is the preferred stock. Strife is it only says preferred stock, but it's the perpetual preferred stock. So Walker, Ray, if you could zoom in a little bit under Strike. So we got 8% per $100 share annual dividend paid in cash or stock for Strike, whereas Strife has 10% per $100 share annual paid in just cash. So there's no convert on Strife. That's the main distinction there, right?
I haven't studied them close enough to know, but that seems to be the case. Hold on, actually, I just pulled something up on my side. Well, I think
so just to fill the air here, it's broken down where Bitcoin upside with MicroStrategy common stock is obviously the highest, right? Because you're just buying the common stock, you're getting exposure to all that Bitcoin. That's the highest upside. You got the preferred stock, Strike, STRK, which, by the way, this is for institutional investors. Because I had a friend text me about Strike. I guess in theory, if you want a dividend stock, you can buy Strike, because you're saying, I want Michael Saylor's dividend stock, but you can't buy it on a normal, I think you can buy it with Fidelity, perhaps. You certainly cannot buy it on Robinhood. Don't believe you can buy it on Schwab. But as you can imagine, the Bitcoin upside is capped. And then Strife, which is the most conservative option, has the lowest Bitcoin upside. It also has the lowest volatility, which makes sense. So obviously the volatility on MicroStrategy common stock MSTR is high. I told you it went from $540 to $220 in like 3 months. I'd say that's pretty damn volatile, and now it's on its way back up. And then it's just medium and low. So he's creating different financial products for different markets to be able to tap into their pools of liquidity and, raise more capital to, buy Bitcoin. I mean, look at this. Yeah. So it's Strike, Ray, let's keep that up. Strike is convertible to Bitcoin common stock at 10-1 at 1,000. And then Strife is just it's not convertible at all.
Hold on. I'm actually let me see if I can. Here, I just dropped a link to their most recent earnings report. So if you pull up page 21, there's interesting, some more specifics on Strike. But no, I mean, I think it's really interesting. I mean, look, if you can buy $1 of Bitcoin and get $2.2 in equity value, you should buy as much Bitcoin as you can. I mean, it's just a question of how long can you do that for?
So what is interesting to you here about this is like all the details, 21
pages.
I
mean, there's going to be like, it would be arguably irresponsible of me to just on the fly, have too strong of an opinion. But I mean, it looks like, there's, an 8% dividend in cash or in common stock. It looks like, they can be converted into 1/10 of a share at a conversion price of $1,000. I mean, one thing that's interesting is that the company can defer dividends, and so they don't have to pay that, the dividend if there's like a cash crunch or something like that. It looks like unless they have raised equity, right, which would seemingly imply that, like, let's say that there's like a rough patch and they can't pay dividends, like presumably they'd want to raise capital to shore that up. And in this case, they'd have to, first pay back any deferred interest payments. But I mean, I don't know. It looks like a very complicated, security to me at the end of the day.
Yes, but there's people that spend their whole day analyzing complicated securities in this, in this market, which is the preferred market. And they can only buy assets in this market. And I have a feeling that they're going to find this one to be pretty interesting.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely. I mean, it's already fully subscribed, right? So
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
look at that.
Yeah. It's just, and by the way, go back to your question about like, well, what else, what can you do next? There's infinite ways to do this. Like you can go from convertible bond to preferred stock, et cetera. But even within those two categories, there's like infinite room for creativity. So,
well, that's music to my ears. I mean, you're gonna tell me Michael Saylor is got infinite options to be able to create new financial products for the market. I mean, that's just unbelievable. So look, thank you, Walker, for that deep dive. Let's move on to crypto, because we talk about MicroStrategy on the show a lot. Well, real quick, bring Ray's ass in here. Yo, Ray. So you just listened to me and Walker talk about MicroStrategy pretty in depth. Do you have any thoughts? Do you have any questions about this topic? And then I'll pull you back in for crypto too, but I'd love to know what you're thinking right now.
No, this is good. I'm definitely getting a little more information on the difference between the STRK and STRF. Kind of have a better handle there. A lot of it we've talked about in the past with the how they raise equity and the potential issues with it and how you're better off or worse off with MicroStrategy stock versus Bitcoin. It's interesting to see like the exposure levels for the different new offerings. I think that's pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, it's good to continue to get more information about this over time. I feel like it takes a lot to have an educated opinion and to trade effectively in this niche.
Well, you don't have to trade. You just buy the thing and don't sell it. And it just outperforms fucking everything over like a multi-year time horizon. It's unbelievable. But anyway, the funny thing about it is I feel like the MicroStrategy, I'm not even going to call them bears because I think it's actually fine to be a bear. The like Twitter haters, like the MicroStrategy Twitter haters, it's like they want this level of explanation of every single component of MicroStrategy so deep that you have to spend all your time studying Strike. Like Walker, you just said, you're like, yeah, it looks like a pretty complicated security to me. For me, all you need to know is he's tapping into different pools of liquidity, giving them exposure to MicroStrategy stock, and thus giving them exposure to Bitcoin, the greatest commodity of all time. It's going to like outperform everything. And as a result, he's able to dilute those new securities to raise more capital to buy Bitcoin. And he trades at a multiple because of the reasons that we discussed, because people believe that there's a bright future with investing in the company that has more Bitcoin than any other company, and no one else will be able to catch up. And every day that goes by makes it less likely that anyone would ever be able to catch up. And I'm just like, yeah, that's good enough for me. I'm a fanatic, and so I try to understand every new security and every new dynamic that comes into play. But it's weird to me that like the MicroStrategy haters are like, nah, dude, I need to know every single detail. I'm like, do you know every single detail of how Tesla's making like a battery? Like, I don't know. Like, anyway, yeah.
My one thing with that though is like, there's a good chance that you're just better off buying Bitcoin and holding Bitcoin over the next 10 years than MicroStrategy stock. And that's the level of information you need to go to like get yourself convinced that MicroStrategy could be the better play. I feel like at that point, they just don't even care. They're like, I'm just going to buy Bitcoin. And I'm just going to continue to hate on these MicroStrategy fans because they could potentially be the black swan that hurts Bitcoin.
Yeah. I mean, another way to look at that is that for every $1 of MicroStrategy stock you buy today, you're getting, roughly 45 cents of Bitcoin exposure, but you're also getting like financial wizardry, et cetera. Whereas for every $1 of Bitcoin you buy, you're getting $1 of Bitcoin.
Yep. Which is great.
So anyway.
It was great. All right. So anyway, thank you, Ray. MicroStrategy book closed. On to crypto. Walker, what do you think of this cycle right now, man? And what do you think of altcoins not performing the way people want them to compared to Bitcoin this cycle?
I mean, I think it's very interesting. I gave like a speech at UPenn probably 4 or 5 months ago. And the very first question that thank you. The very first question that I got when I was done was, what do you think about the crypto bubble? Which was, it was shocking to me. I was like, what? Like bubble? I didn't know that. But I mean, it's really interesting. I think Solana has taken up a lot of mind share, and I would guess has probably outperformed a lot of different tokens. And I think, I don't know. It's very interesting. I think one thing that's interesting about this cycle relative to the 2021 cycle is that a lot of it is backed by revenue and earnings. I remember back then it was not cool to make money, and people were not focused on it, things like that. Whereas today there are, there's hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue being generated every month by the biggest companies in the space, which I think is bullish for their ability to retain that and invest in it and, kind of push the space forward regardless of price.
What do you think of Solana having such an insane percentage of overall crypto transaction volume? I think it's over 80% of all crypto transaction volume happens on Solana.
I mean, I think there's like a power law thing, right? So there's network effects. And if you think about, if you're buying an asset on a blockchain, what are you looking for? You're looking for the best price, the most liquidity, et cetera. If you're selling it, you're looking for the best price, the most liquidity, et cetera. So I think there's the bigger something gets, the bigger it's going to get, at least until things change. So.
And when you say things change in this context, is it like a disruption from a competitor? Is that things changing?
I mean, like if you just look in the last week or two, just as an example, I think Binance memes are, I think Binance volume is not terribly far off from Solana volume. I saw some chart on Twitter. But I mean, basically if you have, if like volume declines enough and then you have like an inorganic thing or you have a coordinated push from a foundation or something like that, I think you could maybe tip the scales. But I don't know. I mean, I think Solana is in a great position. I think there's a lot of very exciting up and coming chains. I think people are doing interesting things with RWA. I think there's plenty of room to win outside of Solana, but I think Solana itself is going to be tough to catch.
Yeah. And so, all right, Ray, could you pull up the Sol BTC chart? So this is the chart that I'm most interested in all of crypto because I'm a huge Bitcoin guy, but I have like 1,100 Solana. So I'm like, all right, this is like interesting, Do you think that this chart has seen its all-time high forever?
Meaning the highest price of Solana relative to Bitcoin? I don't think so. I think that Solana was much more. I think Solana's in a downtrend now. I think it's probably more volatile than Bitcoin. So I think that would go up.
Really?
Yeah, because Solana is a very interesting asset to earn. The economics are a little different today, but when Solana's at it, in its full force, you can stake Sol and get, a 15% plus yield, in kind.
And I stake Sol to the Hello Moon validator. Don't get
that's
it
right. There we go.
Half of my Sol is staked to yours, and half of my Sol is staked to Mert. So Helios and Hello Moon are two validators.
There we go. Neck and neck. So yeah, I mean, it's. I think Bitcoin is a store of value, and I think Solana is something that people use to do things. And I think that there's a higher. I think you can get bigger if you're doing things. I'm bullish on both, obviously, but I think there's, I would argue, more upside in Sol.
The reason that I ask, and Ray, if we can pull that chart up again, the reason that I ask is because the Sol BTC chart has a very similar pattern to the Ethereum BTC chart. And I think a lot of people would argue that the Ethereum BTC chart, the all-time high is in. Like it'll never be topped, right? The thing about this that makes me feel, wow, this one's crazy. This is the Ethereum one. That one's just crazy. But if we go back to the Solana one, the thing that has me wondering if it'll ever be topped again is because that previous cycle, man, because Solana went from what, like $2 to 260 or some insane run like that from 2020 to 2022 or 2021. 2021. And it's like, what could possibly create that again against Bitcoin now that Bitcoin has the institutional backing, right? Because like you have an Ethereum ETF, including a BlackRock Ethereum ETF. And no, like institutional investors don't care. I don't know if BlackRock's not telling its clients that Ethereum, like I would love to know what they're telling their clients about Ethereum. But like, for example, my mom's got a bunch of the Bitcoin ETF because I invested her money in it. I'm not plowing her money into the Ethereum ETF. I'm just not. And I just find it hard to see a world where Bitcoin, it's not even that I don't think Solana is going to go to $400 or higher. I do think that it is. But as a Bitcoin guy, I care a lot about its performance against Bitcoin. Basically where I'm at is if for whatever reason this chart goes back to an all-time high, I'm swapping the Solana for Bitcoin. Duh, obviously I'm going to do that. And if it doesn't, I'll turn the Solana into like a house or something like that. Right? like a hard asset. You know, that's the way I'm thinking about it. But I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think that there's more things you can do with Solana, and I think, I mean, you know, Bitcoin is a store of value, and Solana is a smart contract chain, right? And so, yep. You know, I think Sol kind of, there's a lot of new chains that I think could do interesting things. There's a lot of chains that have been around for a while that are doing new things that could be interesting. I don't see quite as much on the Ethereum side. So ETH, BTC, I think maybe you've topped, but Solana, you know, like, I mean, it was up 50% or something like that, you know, like 2 or 3 weeks ago when they announced that was going to be part of the strategic reserve. So, you know, who knows? Yeah, who knows?
If you're going to say something else, you know, it's just a moment of reflection. It's like, yeah, you know, we got to see what happens with Solana. Okay,
we hold a lot of Sol. We don't hold that much Bitcoin, so I got to think about it.
Oh, okay. Well, actually, let's talk about this. So all right. So you run a successful crypto company, way more successful than the crypto company I run. Let me tell you that. Way more. Hey, look, dude.
I don't know about that.
No, yeah, for sure. Because, you know, we run like sort of a traditional business in this market. We want to get a crazy upside play in the business. ChooseRich.live is like, you know, the start of that, which is like the app that Nick's been working on. And I'm very optimistic we will be able to figure something out in that niche, because we're just not going to go anywhere. We're just stubborn as hell and are just going to be sticking around for we've already been around now for almost 4 full years. If you give us another 6 at some point, banging our heads against the wall, we'll get something across the line. But you have a technologically native crypto company, which is real. That's the way to do it, right? This is a technology space. It's a technology industry. That's the way to do it. Let's talk about Hello Moon. I mean, as simple as possible, what is Hello Moon's business? It's a B2B business.
Yeah, I mean, we're a blockchain infrastructure provider. And I think that can take on all different sorts of, it can manifest itself in a bunch of different ways. So we provide raw infrastructure like RPCs and validators and data streams and things like that. We also work closely with a bunch of different L1s and L2s, and we're helping them go to market. We're helping them, you know, have nodes that are, you know, that work and are synchronized. So we're doing all kinds of things. Yeah.
So you have a bunch of clients, you know, using your services to the tune of tens of thousands of dollars a month. You guys got cash coming in, right? So maybe some of them are at $100,000 a month. Obviously, we're not going to publicly talk about that, but you got a bunch of cash coming in. You have a significant amount of Solana and some Bitcoin on the balance sheet.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a fluke that we do. I mean, I'm waiting to get some things that we can not have to pay transaction fees when we sell. And so we've been accumulating for like a month or two, not as a market, not as a guess to what the markets will do, but just as a, fee mitigation strategy.
Okay. Okay. So wait, just so I understand that. So is it because you earn in Solana?
Yeah, that's right. We get paid in Solana.
Because
We get paid in all kinds of things, but also Solana.
so you get paid in Solana from your clients and from the validator?
That's right. Yeah, or we get paid in other native tokens, but it's most things trade in Sol pairs, and so yeah, it's tough to move. Like New York State is weird with stable coins, and so you can have Ethereum stable coins on centralized exchanges, but not all Solana based ones. It's very Byzantine stuff, but
It's a huge colossal pain in the ass. You can't use Kraken in New York. Coinbase, does Coinbase not have or do you have an institutional Coinbase account?
yeah, we do, but I think they're limited in terms of like the services they can provide to New York based companies. So
What a colossal pain in the ass, dude. All right, so sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, I used to be an crypto entrepreneur in New York, and to get a Gemini institutional account, we had to have the lead in our round, Adam Draper, like the CEO of the VC lead in our round, reach out to the Winklevoss twins to get it across the line. Actually, like, because he knows them, and that was how we were able to get our institutional account across the line. But anyway, okay. So, would you consider holding Bitcoin on your balance sheets? You know, sailor style, but not. I'm not talking about like financial wizardry, just like, or how about this Tesla style? Tesla just holds the Bitcoin. They just chill with the Bitcoin.
yeah, I mean, it's hard to predict if the price will go up or down in the short term. It's easy to predict what the fees will be. I would say no. I think as a business, we have enough exposure to to price fluctuations through the day-to-day business and through working capital conversion. And so I think our investors are, if they want exposure to Solana or Bitcoin or something like that, they can get that by investing directly. But having said that, working capital cycles have to be managed, and so it's easy to, we like our crypto exposure is like this, it's like up and down as we convert.
Got it. I mean, MicroStrategy's kicking Coinbase's ass, and people think that's because of Coinbase's refusal to put Bitcoin on the balance sheet. Metaplanet's blowing up, top performing stock in Japan. That one's like really interesting. That's baby MicroStrategy, right? MicroStrategy Junior. My thought is, my dog's growling at me. I'm just going to let her outside. Ray, if you want to come in real quick, I just got to let her outside to talk to Clemente, to hang out with Clemente. But anyway, real quick, my thought is, I feel like every entrepreneur in crypto, including Nick, the CEO of our company, my business partner, when I bring up the idea of putting Bitcoin on the balance sheet, they think that I'm talking about going full tilt sailor and just like, all the chips on the table. I'm like, dude, you can do a little bit, right? And if your company's going to be around for years, it's just going to go up. Like the Bitcoin's just going to go up, So that was one thought that I had, but obviously startup companies, there's a lot going on there, and I'm listening. But
yeah, I mean, we don't even want to have too much cash. Like we try to use raise capital efficiently, things like that. So I guess if we were going to have like a long-term cash position that we knew we weren't going to use, today I would say that means that we'd raise too much money. But if that was the position we were in, I'd rather have Bitcoin than cash. But it's a trade-off.
Fair. All right. So look, rest of this year, we got a new Trump administration that at first people were excited about. Then we top before he gets inaugurated, literally like the day before is the top thus far this year. Yeah. Then he rolls out a bunch of tariffs. Everyone craps their pants over the tariffs, even though all he talked about for 2 years was doing tariffs. And then he does the tariffs and everybody starts freaking out. We bought them at 78.5K locally, which was about 14 days ago. 2 weeks ago is when we bought them, if I'm not mistaken. And now he's doing more tariff stuff, and the market's bored of it and doesn't care. Just like what happened during COVID, where the new bad news didn't matter, and the market said, "Screw it, we're going higher." They're printing money. M2 money supply is going up. It's just happening. Where do you think we are in the cycle at this point? And do you still believe in a 4-year cycle in the same way? And what do you think's going down here?
I mean, I don't know how it converts the prices. But I think Trump is a very pro-business president, and I think that he's a very markets-focused president. And so, I think he's willing to take some risks and do some interesting things that people may not appreciate in the short term, but I think in the long run, I would have to imagine that it'll be up and to the right. So
Hell
tough,
yeah.
tough to say. I don't know that I would do 100x levered long, at today's prices, but
if you do that, you're a sicko. I mean, the leverage, it really is sicko stuff. Like I'm selling options. I'm selling like Tesla, Robinhood, MicroStrategy, and Coinbase options, selling puts and calls. And I'm like, this is so much less risky than leverage stuff. I don't have any experience with leverage stuff. Easy's trading the hell out of our DYDX portfolio right now. And has run it up to like $8.5 grand from like $1 grand. So he's crushing it. But anyway, I just saw your note that you got a hard stop in 2 minutes. Last thing, first of all, thank you for coming on the show, Walker. This was electric. We have to do it again. Second, what should people know about Hello Moon? Because you are our longest standing partner and you're on the show. I want to have you get a chance to talk a little bit more about Hello Moon.
Yeah, I mean, so we're a blockchain infrastructure services company. We're infrastructure services provider. And so if you're building something on any blockchain, but especially Solana, hit us up and we'd love to, make something happen. Or if you're looking to stake Sol or soon stake other tokens, give us a shout or look at the website. And yeah, let's do business.
Are you hiring anybody right now?
We're always hiring. We're looking for good engineers. We're looking for good partnerships people. We're looking for we're about to hire a new designer. So yeah, we're perpetually hiring.
Software engineers, like sick back-end software engineers?
Back end, front end, full stack, you name it.
Object-oriented programmers?
Anything. You just got to be smart.
Okay. Smart engineers, salespeople, and it sounds like maybe UI, UX people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Always. We're literally just if you're good, give us a shout. We'll figure out a way to make it work. So
if anyone listening is a software engineer or a salesperson or someone that's working in non-crypto but loves crypto, sees an opportunity in crypto, Hello Moon's been around for 4 years, 5 years.
4 years now. Yeah, almost 4 years.
4 years, baby. Boom. Walker, thanks so much for coming, man. This was awesome.
Of course, man. Cheers.
Yeah. Catch you guys later. Follow Hello Moon on Twitter. So Walker, feels like this was a good use of his time. Appreciate you guys listening. Catch you guys next time.
Cheers.